Wait a minute, that's not right. Liv Morgan keeps one eye on the prize and one eye on Dirty D. We acknowledge that Paul Heyman was not a very wise man, and we wrap up the Money in the Bank qualifiers. Plus, we answer, are the Wyatts technologically advanced or technologically impaired? Okay! In the news! In the news indeed, and apparently it is Liv Morgan's world and the rest of us are just living in it. So let's start with her in the Women's World Championship match against Zelina Vega. Zelina actually held her own pretty well throughout this match, but of course it all changed when both Dom and then Ray came out to help Zelina only? Who knows what Dom has up his mind. However, Liv hit both the three amigos and put in the Prism Lock, which is Rhea's own submission move, and Liv countered with a Code Red attempt and turned it into a reverse pile driver. That was an amazing move, but Zelina was somehow okay after it, and she was able to hit a Sunset Powerbomb followed by a 619 and a DDT, but Liv still found a way to kick out. At that point, however, Dom threw a steel chair to Zelina to tell her to use it on Liv, but Zelina decided to hit Dom with it instead, but that distraction did give Liv the opportunity to land an Oblivion and retain the title. For Liv, this is her second title defense and first match in over a month since beating Becky for the second time in a steel cage, and she has now won 4 one-on-one matches in a row and is now 5-3 in one-on-one matches. For Zelina, she falls to 0-6 in all singles action and has not won a singles match since last August 4th, 2023. But let's stick with the LWO and the Judgment Day as we had Dom take on his father Ray yet again, and as you would guess, Liv made her presence felt here as well as she came out and pulled Dom off the rope as Ray was getting ready for a 619. As Dom argued with Liv about helping him out, Ray hit a baseball slide, knocking Dom right on top of Liv in the exact reverse compromised position that they were in just a few weeks ago. Well, at that point, Zelina came out and attacked Liv, and Zelina eventually swiped Liv's leg. That caused Dom to land on his Dirty D. Well, that led to Ray hitting a 619 and dropping the dime to get the win. Ray goes to 2-2 in one-on-one matches, while Dom falls to a pretty sad 1-5 in one-on-one matches. But let's finally turn to our match of the week, and it was the main event and the last of 2 Money in the Bank qualifiers that saw Drew McIntyre face Ilya Dragunov and Sheamus. This was a really hard-hitting affair that you would expect to see between these 3 combatants, and Dragunov was the one who impressed throughout, showcasing his entire arsenal, landing 2 H-bombs, a double superplex, a Constantine special, and he even countered a Claymore with a Torpedo Moscow. But Sheamus stopped Dragunov's coast-to-coast diving attempt with a big kick of his own and then a brogue kick. McIntyre finally, however, countered another brogue kick from Sheamus and hit a Claymore to get the win. For McIntyre, he goes to 10-5 in all singles matches, while Sheamus falls to 3-3, and Dragunov is now just 2-4 in singles matches. The other Money in the Bank qualifier was between Doktor O'Kay, Zoe Stark, and Ivy Now. Ivy hit a double bulldog off the top rope and also landed a double German suplex. Very impressive showing from Ivy, but it was not enough when Kyrie came out to try to distract the competitors, but Fire and Dawn also ran down the ramp and were able to stop Kyrie. Zoe then took advantage and hit a Z360 on Dakota to get the win. Well, I guess this is a match where you had to say that somebody had to win it, so I guess in this case it was Zoe, as she goes to 2-5 in singles matches, while Dakota remains winless at 0-5, and Ivy is not much better at just 1-7. And in the match that actually kicked off the show, we saw Xavier Woods take on Karrion Kross. Well, not much to say about this one, but Kross hit a forearm that looked to knock out Woods, but Woods turned it into a backwoods to pick up a quick pin. The Final Testament were not too pleased with this result, and they attacked both Woods and Kingston, and Kross hit both a crosshammer and then had a really tight hold on Kingston's left elbow that looked like it just might break it, but he finally relented upon Scarlett's suggestion, and they left both New Day members laying on the mat. For Woods, he does pick up his first singles win of 2024, going to 1-2, while Kross, after winning last week, falls to the same record of 1-2. Then beyond the map for Raw, let's start with the Judgment Day. Well, it began with Dom telling Priest that he had spoken to Rhea, but Priest called his bluff and said that he was the one who had just spoken to her and she was not happy. Well, he was even less happy when Liv happened to be in the Judgment Day locker room with the rest of them playing 2K with her. But she then left and Balor talked to Priest, and Balor said that Priest had changed ever since he won the title. Well, that proved to be true just a short while later when Balor decided to confront Seth Rollins in the middle of the ring, and he said it was Rollins' fault about what was happening to the Judgment Day. Well, at that point, Priest came out and told Balor not to attack Rollins and that Priest had to do this on his own. But, of course, Balor attacked him anyways, and both Judgment Day members got a super kick in the face for their troubles. So Balor also got a stomp for his troubles from that, but Priest did save the day with a South of Heaven chokeslam on Rollins. Backstage, Priest then told Balor that he has to do it on his own against Rollins. Well, it was another week where the Wyatt Sick6 scared Chad Gable, which happened after Gable interrupted Jey Uso to kick off the show. After Jey said that he was a terrible person for what he was doing to the Alpha Academy, Gable attacked Jey, but Jey eventually turned it around, landing a super kick on him. At that point, the lights went out on Gable, and Abby again gave a VHS tape to Michael Cole. As Gable scurried away through the crowd, there were different members of the Firefly Funhouse waiting in the wings as we could only see their silhouettes. Eventually, Gable was able to escape through the crowd. But later in the night, we did see Gable again try to talk to Otis, and again Otis rejected him, saying that he does not hate Gable, but he was not willing to help. For the Wyatt Sick6, we again got to see what was on that VHS tape, and it was still Uncle Howdy and Bo Dallas hashing things out, and Bo eventually said that they're a family and that he had set them free. Elsewhere, we had Zayn and Braun Breaker in a face-to-face in the middle of the ring, where just as Breaker appeared to be leaving, he turned around and viciously speared Zayn. He again went for another running spear outside the ring, and Zayn was able to jump over Breaker, causing Breaker to crash into the steel steps. Zayn kept fighting back, but as he went for a haluva kick, Breaker was able to land yet another spear. Things are not looking so good for Zayn as they head into their IC title clash at Money in the Bank. Lastly, after her loss in the Money in the Bank qualifier, Dakota said that she was sick of everyone getting into damage control business. And sure enough, just like that, Lyra showed up to do that, and then Carter and Chance followed behind, and all three of them attacked the three members of Damage Control. And on SmackDown, well, we did not have a lot of action this week, so I guess what we can say is that at least they were meaningful matches, as all three matches that there were at least Money in the Bank qualifiers. So let's get to those. First, on the women's side, we had Tiffany Stratton, Candice LeRae, and Jade Cargill in the first of these two. And here we saw Nia Jax come out to the ring to help Tiffy, but fortunately Bianca then also came out to even the odds. When Jade missed a stinger splash and fell to the outside of the ring, it looked like Nia was about to attack Jade, but Bianca fortunately stopped her. However, Indy Hartwell then came out of the crowd and threw Jade into the ring post from the outside. At that point, Candice went for a moonsault on Tiffy, but she got her knees up and then landed her own prettiest moonsault ever to get the win. For Tiffany, she surprisingly stopped a 5-match losing streak, with this being her first win since March, and she improves to 6-5-1 in all singles matches. For Jade, she's now dropped 2 singles matches in a row and is just 2-3 in singles matches. And for Candice, well, she is unable to win in these multi-person matches as she falls to 0-4 in them. In the other women's match, we had Blair Davenport making her SmackDown debut, facing Indy Hartwell and Naomi. Turning the tides from the earlier match, we saw Jade then come out to get revenge on Indy, and she threw her into the ring post and then tossed her right back into the ring, where Naomi hit a modified head scissors driver to get the win. For Naomi, she improves to 4-6-2 in all singles matches, while Indy falls to 0-5 in singles matches. For Blair, this was her first match, and it was a rough start, to be honest, but she'll have a chance to get better after she falls to 0-1. On the men's side, we had just one Money in the Bank qualifier, and that was Santos Escobar taking on LA Knight and Logan Paul. Tyrese Halliburton showed his support for Logan Paul and eventually grabbed the brass knuckles for him to take out Knight. But fortunately, Jalen Brunson of the Knicks was there in his home arena of Madison Square Garden to stop Halliburton from doing so. From this distraction, Knight was able to hit a BFT on Escobar, but Paul grabbed Knight from behind and rolled him up, grabbing the tights, hoping to get the pin, but Knight was able to reverse that on his own and get the pin for himself. Halliburton and Brunson then squared off again with Paul and Knight respectively, but it was when Brunson grabbed a steel chair that caused Halliburton and Paul to leave the ring. For the match itself, we had Knight improving to an impressive 8-5-1 in all singles matches, while Paul drops to 3-3 in all singles matches. For Escobar, he's done pretty well on one-on-one matches, but he does fall to 0-3 in multi-person singles matches. So, since that was all we had inside the ring, let's go beyond the mat for SmackDown. Well, we had a Bloodline affirmation ceremony set to kick off the show, but Rhodes, Orton, and Owens followed behind the Bloodline, and the two factions both battled against each other outside the ring, and eventually Rhodes, Orton, and Owen were able to take the ring from them. At that point, Aldis called the security down to the ring, and one poor security guard went into the ring to try to get the 3 men to settle down, but instead, Orton hit an RKO on him. At that point, all the rest of the security guards rushed the ring, and all 3 men brutally attacked all of the security guards, really laying them all out. At that point, Aldis finally called in the police, where they finally were able to get cooler heads to prevail, and the 3 men were taken out of the arena. That way, at the end of the show, we were able to have the Bloodline affirmation ceremony, where Tonga, Loa, and Fatu all acknowledged Sikoa as their tribal chief. Sikoa then turned to Paul Heyman to do the same, and Heyman hesitated for a moment and then finally said that he acknowledged that Sikoa was not his tribal chief. At that point, the 4 members of the Bloodline grabbed Heyman and gave a triple powerbomb through the announce table to end the show. And I don't think Paul Heyman's going to be showing up anytime in the near future. We had told Heyman for several weeks that he needed to do a better job of staying in control, but he just could not help himself when it came to it. So you had to know that these 4 brutally violent men were going to do something about it, and Heyman really paid the price. Elsewhere, we had DIY in a backstage interview when Austin Theory interrupted them, but Gargano again told Theory that Grayson Waller was not Theory's friend and was just using him for the tag team titles. At that point, Waller came out of nowhere and attacked Gargano from behind and also attacked Ciampa before Theory finally grabbed him and pulled him away. We also had Aldis speaking to Michin, who he gave a match with Nia for next week, and then spoke with the Street Profits and B-Fab, and the Street Profits were given a match against Pretty Deadly. Lastly, in typical Carmelo Hayes fashion, he seemed to care more about pushing some merchandise than winning his upcoming Money in the Bank match. So with that, let's go to the question of the week. Doc, don't you find it weird that the Wyatt Sick6 is just using VHS tapes to get their message across? Well, Sports Zoo, I think you're thinking a little bit too deeply into this one, but I guess we'll try to tackle it here. So the VHS tapes, yeah, the younger kids probably don't even know what a VHS tape is, so at least they're getting a history lesson out of it, right? But I guess you have a point. They were able to infiltrate the WWE's production and have all of those weird cryptic messages and QR codes just flash on the screen for weeks and months before they appeared. So they're apparently really good with modern day technology to be able to avoid the WWE in that way and get on the air. But if they want to use VHS tapes, I guess they can go back in time as well. So yeah, they've been around for a while. They can do anything from the 90s, or they could do anything from the 2020s. I don't know. It all works. They're able to do anything. I'm not going to be the one to tell the Wyatts what to do or what not to do. I think it's great that if they're going to harass anyone, that it's Chad Gable. So if Bo Dallas and Uncle Howdy want to chat it out for a while and show how Bo Dallas was overlooked and that they finally need to get all these Wyatt family members out into the open now after being overlooked for all of this time, I think it's wonderful. I think they should be able to do it. And certainly they know how to do just about anything. They've got a lot going for them. So good luck, Wyatt Sick6. Wishing you all the best. I don't want you to come after me pretty much the same way Jey Uso said that. So keep up the good work, Wyatt Sick6. Yeah. And with that, let's go to What Were You Thinking? This week we asked Candice LeRae, what were you thinking when you tried to do some sort of double team move against both Tiffany Stratton and Jade Cargill? Let's set the scene. Well, Tiffy had just grabbed Candice and did a pretty bad Alabama slam into the corner that dazed Candice. Tiffy then went on to do her handspring back elbow on Jade and then went right back at Candice, where she would do the same to Candice, but Candice got out of the way. Now you'll notice that there was no handspring there. That's just not going to happen. Anyways, Candice then grabs Tiffy by the head, and it looks like she's going to do some sort of running bulldog here, but Jade had recovered on the other corner, and she was already running at Candice when Candice finally started running with Tiffy, and by the time they met in the middle, Jade was already ready for her, and Tiffy, with a little push, gets Candice up into the air and then lands a devastating spine buster onto Candice. So Candice really paid for that one. It looked like she had no idea what to do with Jade there. And so Candice, what were you thinking? And on this week's suspensions, terminations, and fines, our STFs are pretty light this week. But we have a couple big ones, and let's start with the biggest. We had Rhodes, Orton, and Owens square off against the Bloodline to kick off SmackDown, but that was a pretty fair fight to start, so no one's getting any fines there. However, once Rhodes, Orton, and Owens took the ring, Aldis called in the security guards, and Orton landed an RKO on the first of the security guards, which then caused all the rest of the security guards to enter the ring, but the three men attacked all of the security guards, and therefore we will have to give a 1-month suspension to all three of them. Guys, what are we doing here? These are just security guards. They are not WWE superstars. Let them be and just leave the ring. This is getting bad, guys. Let's stop it. Secondly, we did have the Bloodline at the end of the night brutally attack Paul Heyman. First, Sikoa landed a Samoan spike on him and then had the other 3 members do a triple power bomb through the announce table. Well, there's some mitigating circumstances in that Sikoa gave Heyman the choice to acknowledge him. That wasn't a whole lot. We've been telling Heyman for weeks to just be better at acting, but apparently he is a little bit too full of himself. So we're going to mitigate this a little bit down from 1 month to just a 2-week suspension. And lastly, we did have Grayson Waller interrupt a backstage interview with DIY and then attack them from behind, so he's getting a 1-week suspension. On Raw, we did have a pretty light week there for the Judgment Day, so this one's not too bad either. But Balor, while he was speaking to Rollins, and after Priest had joined him in the ring, did go and attack Rollins on his own. Well, he paid for it later with a super kick and a stomp, but he's the one that started it. So Balor is getting a fine. Then we had Liv pull Dom off of the ropes during his match against Ray, and this caused off a series of attacks with Zelina and Liv eventually inadvertently costing Dom, but Liv was the instigator here as well, so she will be the only one to get a fine. After Woods and Cross's match, AOP immediately attacked The New Day, and Cross then joined in with a crosshammer and a really devastating elbow lock on Kingston, so we're giving fines to all 5 members of the Final Testament. Later, we had Braun Breaker spear Sami Zayn just when it looked like Breaker was about to leave the ring, causing more destruction as usual, but we'll just give him another fine this week. Lastly, Lyra interrupted Dakota speaking to Kathy Kelly backstage, and then that caused a distraction to let Carter and Chance then join in with Lyra to have all of them attack the 3 members of Damage Control. For this, Lyra, Carter, and Chance will surprisingly pick up 1-week suspensions. Liv Morgan successfully retains her title, but she's unable to help Dom win his match. I don't think we'll be seeing Paul Heyman for a while after that triple powerbomb through a table, and all of the Money in the Bank qualifiers are set for the ladder match this weekend. I'm Doktor O'Kay reporting on the WWE, where everything is okay.